Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. JustusRStone here, and today I am having my continued discussion of the Pandora Hearts manga by Jun Mochizuki. Today I am discussing volume number 9. If you're new to this series, this is a full-on spoiler discussion, so if you haven't read volume 9, you should absolutely do so before watching this video. Also, with these videos, I do not read ahead, so anything that I am sort of speculating or wondering about, it's all because I have only read up until volume number 9 at this point. So if you want to discuss this, just you can feel free to put stuff into the comments. I am putting spoiler warnings on this. The only thing that I would ask, because maybe that somebody left a spoiler in the discussion for volume number 8, please don't spoil future stuff. If it's a theory of yours, just state explicitly that this is what you think is happening, just so I know whether it's a spoiler or a theory. Because if this is an actual spoiler, it's kind of a bummer because I don't really want to know, but it's not a big deal. No hate. It's all good, but just, so you know. So anyway, let's get right to it. So volume number 9, holy crazy Hannah, lots of stuff happened in this volume. So we pick up, of course, with Oz. He's had his InQ's advance a step. That happened like right at the end of volume number 8, which I didn't even discuss, but I mean, there's not a lot to theorize about that, except I wasn't really sure why. However, it becomes really important in this volume because Oz's InQ's, of course, has advanced, and we know from discussions of other sort of people that are chains and such that as the InQ's advances, the bond between the contractor and the chain becomes even stronger. But Alice points out that she almost feels like the bond between her and Oz and even her own powers and stuff, that it seems to be weakening now that the InQ's has moved ahead, which seems completely contrary to how things are supposed to work. But we have this sort of thing that happens at the very end of this book that, well, I'll get to it. I'll get to it, and I'm going to theorize about what I'm thinking about what's going on. So anyway, so Oz has decided that the only way to really move ahead, because he's got sort of this information from Break, he's got the information from the other Duke, he's got this stuff, but he really doesn't know what to do with it. And it still seems like there's a lot of conflicting information. And so he decides, you know what? Let's just go right back to the source of everything. Let's go back to Sablier and get this sorted out. And so that's what they do. He saddles up with Gil and Alice, and they head to Sablier. Now, one of the other things that we find out before this journey of theirs takes place is Vincent is a little pissed and is taking it out on Echo. Poor Echo. I like Echo. But then I felt really bad because it turns out that Echo is a split personality. I kind of had a feeling there had to be something. I mean, the whole name Echo, and as she says, I'm just an Echo. Like, I kind of thought there had to be something. I did not see it coming that she was like the alternate personality for that crazy Baskerville named Zwei, or Zwei, or I'm not sure. You know what? Let me, if you can do a phonetic in the description, if you know for sure, let me know. But anyway, so Noise is also what they refer to this alternate personality as. So you have Echo, who is this sort of stone cold, deadpan, in control girl, and then you have this complete maniac who almost seems to identify as a male figure. So I was kind of trying to figure out exactly that. I didn't know whether that was an intentional thing or whether that was like a typo in the translation. I wasn't too sure. Definitely, I would say that this personality comes through as being a bit more masculine. So I'm going to guess maybe that's sort of the case. Especially, and I mean, okay, well, he does say that, or she does, or it says that it's madly in love with Vincent. So I'm really not too sure. I don't know. And then, of course, we see Vincent's relationship with Lottie, which seems to be a little adversarial and twisted. And he's like, yeah, let's hook up. And she's basically like, sure, as long as you give me a good scream as I tear each of your fingernails off and then lick the blood from your fingers. And he's like, that sounds thrilling. And I'm like, dude, you people are so messed up. Anyway, let's get to the real meat of this whole thing. So Sablier. So first of all, we find out that the Night Ray organization is running an orphanage in Sablier. There are still people that sort of live on the fringes. It's basically become a slum. And the Night Ray family runs an orphanage there for children who have lost their parents either to chains or because their parents became contractors and were dragged into the abyss or killed or what have you. So we actually meet Philippe, who was one of the earlier volumes where they were hunting the Grimm. And he actually steals Oz's wallet, and that's how we find out, because Oz chases after him and runs into Elliot and Leo. And we find out that Leo, I guess, is an orphan because of contractors or what have you, because he refers to the orphans as his brothers and sisters. And again, we have sort of this interesting dynamic with Elliot and Oz, where Oz seems to be very, very happy to see Elliot and really wanting to have sort of that connection and relationship and looking up to and idolizing Elliot. Meanwhile, Elliot is like, I would not have helped you if I had known what your last name was. And so there's sort of this interesting dynamic, but at the same time, Oz is like, I know you're saying those words, but I'm pretty sure even if you had, you still would have helped me against the Baskervilles. And the one thing that Elliot asks him before he sort of kicks them all out is what Oz knows about the headhunter. And so this is sort of a new little tidbit of information, which again, Gil says he has nothing to do with it. He doesn't know. And that's when Elliot's like, fine, I have no use for you guys. Get out, and kicks them out. So we don't even know what that's about yet, but it's got to play out in future sort of volumes. A headhunter. I'm kind of wondering if that means it's someone who is hunting contractors or what exactly that's going to play out as. I'm really not sure. So then Oz and party start to descend into Sablier. Oh, side note, Elliot has sort of this flashback of, I think it's his dad. It's kind of hard to tell just the way that it's drawn. It could be like a hooded figure. It could be a figure with longer hair, which means it could be a woman. I'm not too sure. But basically saying to Elliot, the Vesalius family is the reason for our downfall. They're the reason for all of our pain and everything else. Don't ever forget it. Harness your hate and direct it all towards them. And you can see where Elliot seems a little bit conflicted by this, but at the same time, you can see if he's been raised this way, why he would have no love for the Vesaliuses. And I'm guessing this sort of goes back to what Gil was talking about when Brake first told him to go and join the Night Ray family, is that the Night Ray family is suspected of having a hand in the death of Oz's mom, which Brake at that point kind of made the suggestion that maybe that story wasn't quite as legit as what we think, which we still don't know. We still don't know the whole situation. So then our party, Oz, Gil, and Alice, descend into Sablier, into the actual pit where everything went kaplooey. And they're told by the kids that, oh, people don't come back from there. Like, they go down there, they get lost, and it's because it's connected to the abyss. And as they descend deeper, they start having visions of Sablier and everything else, because they're coming into contact with the energies of the abyss. And one by one, they're drawn away from each other by these visions. Alice is drawn away by a vision of herself, and Gil is drawn away by a vision of himself. And Gil is like dealing with this whole thing where now that he's having flashbacks, even though he doesn't really have an idea of what his past was, all he knows is he's having these impulses, like these violent impulses. So I'm starting to wonder, like, as crazy as Vincent is, I'm starting to wonder if, like, Gil did a little bit of the stabby stab too. I'm not too sure. I guess we'll find out. But in any case, he's distracted by this younger version of himself running off, chasing after his master. And then Oz finds himself walking through the massacre of Sablier, eventually coming face to face with Glenn Baskerville. Now, this is cool because this is the first time we've actually seen Glenn's face. He's been always in shadow or from the back and stuff like that up to this point. So now we finally get a clear look at Glenn Baskerville. And Glenn, who is supposed to be like an echo, who basically should be just some memory that the abyss is revealing to Oz, he initially takes Oz to be Jack. But he eventually comes to this realization that no, you're not Jack, you're Oz. And immediately it's like, how the heck do you know that? Like, how could an echo of the past know Oz? And he starts calling him this child of ill fortune. That again says, like the Baskervilles did before, that his sin is his very existence. And all during this, Oz is starting to freak out. He's like, I'm going to die. This guy's going to kill me. I need to run away. I need to do something. And then finally he comes to this sort of idea that he's like, or I need to kill him first. Moving over to Alice, who's sort of been following her sort of phantom self, her past self, who is now like in a garden with Jack. They end up at the graveside that we see very early on in the series, and the name Lacey is there, which is the same name as the composition that Glenn made. And Jack is actually playing the music on the music box while they're there, and Alice is like, you know, why do you do that? And he says, I'm doing it in Glenn's stead because this girl, he composed it for her. She used to hum it. She loved it. And then she was offered as a sacrifice to the abyss, and now she's gone. So here's my thing. Like, Glenn and Jack don't look that old. But we know, or at least Jack said in his diary, that a woman gave birth to the two Alices in the abyss. So was that Lacey? And if so, what was her relationship with Glenn? Because just like if she was a mom and given Alice's age, it would seem to me that it would have been more like a motherly figure as opposed to a sort of love interest. But I don't know. I mean, we still, again, like we don't know. And this whole thing with time, right? This whole backwards, forwards, skip ahead, skip backs, like, I mean, we can't even take for granted that a character who is a certain age, that they're actually the age that they appear to be, or that somehow gaps of time don't occur without them aging because of their interactions with the abyss. So, I mean, who really knows what could have happened? I mean, like, yeah, it's very hard to know exactly what the situation there is. I mean, Glenn could have been trapped in the abyss even for a little while, and if the infant Alice had been brought out of the abyss, she would have aged and he wouldn't have. I mean, I don't know how this is going to play out, and like I said, it all seems to hinge on this Lacey, and even Glenn's sort of desire to destroy or like take hold of the intention of the abyss. He says to Oz it was never supposed to happen, that there was supposed to be sort of a nucleus that just kind of guided the machinations, but it was never supposed to have an ego. It was never supposed to have an actual identity that drove it to do all the different things that are happening, and that's causing the chains to go out of control and to be violent, and is causing all of these upheavals. And so he is like, we are going to take control because that's what the Baskervilles have to do. And we know that somehow this played out with his whole thing with Alice, and the Alice in the abyss and the Alice out of the abyss. Like, this is so... I'm glad that I know that there's still at least 14 volumes to go, or I think there's 15. I think there was 24 in total, because it seems like there's going to be a lot of sorting out to do as we go along. And let's get back now. So, meanwhile, Elliot and Leo have come down to sort of figure out what the heck Oz and them, like where they went and everything else. And they're concerned because the kids told them that Oz and company were going down into the pit. And Elliot and Leo are like, okay, stay focused, ignore these, phantoms and stuff. And they're attacked by Lottie and Zwei, the Baskervilles, who are saying like, nope, you aren't to interfere because Oz is finally meeting this great man and you can't interfere. And just when it looks like, Zwei and Lottie are going to sort of have their way with these two, Break comes out of nowhere and like takes down Lottie and then stabs Zwei like right through the chest, which, as much as I don't mind seeing Zwei get that, knowing now that that's Echo, I was kind of like, oh, but I don't think a bullet wound was enough. I don't think it'll be enough to kill Zwei/Echo. We'll see. Anyway, so as Break is taking down the Baskervilles, Elliot's like, Leo, let's book it. Let's get out of here. And they clearly are like, this is not a good scene for us to be a part of. Even Break says, wow, they were pretty astute in their assumptions that they should leave. And so they take off and they get deeper into the abyss and they see the corpses of these ghouls. Now, we found out that the people who don't return from this pit basically become corrupted and they become all like disformed and stuff, and they're basically zombies. Let's just cut down to the chase. But, you know, they're all disfigured and everything else. It's not like they're rotting corpses, although they look kind of like rotting corpses. But anyway, they come down and there's a whole bunch of these things that have been slaughtered. And there is someone, we see them in profile, just and sitting there with a huge scythe that looks very much like the B-Rabbit scythe. And as they come closer, the text sort of overlays of what Jack had said, where, you know, one day Oz will be able to unlock this power because it belongs to him, blah, blah, blah. And we see that it's actually Oz sitting there with this scythe. Now, what the heck does this mean? Like, to me, automatically, when I saw that, I was like, does that mean that it's Oz who's actually the chain? Like, did somehow something get manipulated here? And I mean, let's go back. I had said a while ago that I kind of thought that maybe Oz was somehow like a clone or somehow an echo, funny enough, of Jack. I wasn't too sure, and I said that I thought maybe his creation had something to do with the Abyss. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe the whole B-Rabbit thing, maybe that's Oz. Maybe that is an Oz, and maybe Alice is... I'm not even sure what Alice is still, because if she died in Sablier, how did she end up as a chain in the Abyss? And if she is his chain, how is it that she's actually feeling their relationship and her powers weaken as his InQs advances? And yet Oz himself now suddenly seems to be capable of something fairly incredible and has like this scythe and everything, like basically has the B-Rabbit's powers without actually having the B-Rabbit. And this kind of goes back. Now, I didn't really... again, like, you know, as you get ahead in this series, you start sort of going back and taking a look at things you did, and wow, this video is getting long. But there's just so much that happens in this volume, and it's making me reevaluate so much of what I saw before. And now I'm thinking to myself, hold on. When Oz was at the school and he was attacked by the Baskervilles, he kind of unleashed the B-Rabbit, but Alice was nowhere near him. Like, she was nowhere near him. So if Alice is the B-Rabbit, then how could she have been released as his chain if she wasn't even there? Instead, it was Jack who he had summoned, and then the B-Rabbit power unlocked. So either, like, I don't think Jack is the chain. Like, that seems, I mean, who knows, right? Like, we know that Jack was given to a great deal of despair after Sablier. In fact, he wrote in his journal, "Don't call me a hero. You know, I killed my best friend. I am not a hero. I'm anything but. I just did what I had to do, and it was terrible." And maybe Jack gave in and sort of became a contractor and ended up in the Abyss. And maybe Jack is actually the chain that Oz has this sort of contract with. Or, like, I don't even know. I don't know what's happening. Like, because clearly Oz and Alice are somehow tied together, but yet Oz is using these powers without Alice being anywhere near him and without her getting in any way stronger or their connection with each other getting anywhere stronger. So something clearly is within Oz that is acting independently of his contract with Alice. Wow, so much happened in volume number 9, and now I am just so hungry to move ahead and read volume number 10 and see just if any of this stuff gets explained. So I'm going to end it here because, like I said, this video is getting really long, and I'm thinking these videos are probably going to get even longer as they go because there's just so much happening in all of these volumes, and to try to address them all, and like I said, then go back and reevaluate things that I thought before that now I'm thinking are different, somehow changed. Like, I still can't help but feel that somehow Oz's mother plays a bigger part of this than what anybody's letting on. And it's all about Oz's origins, I'm thinking, and we'll see what happens in future volumes. So if you hung in there right to the very end, thank you so much, because like I said, this one's going to be probably my longest video yet. I've been trying to post these way more regularly because I want to read this series and get through it, because I am so hooked, because every volume just gets better and better and has more and more stuff, and as many answers as I get, it like doubles the amount of questions that I have. So hang in there with me. Thanks very much for watching. I'll have a new one of these posted probably next week because, like I said, I just gotta know what's happening. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye for now.